Hey everyone, Chang here. This is the practice problem video series. For today's topic, we're going to talk about this problem right here. This is one of those problems that threw me for a loop when I first saw it. And then after a while, after being calm and actually sitting down and thinking about it when you're not in a test environment, it actually is quite simple. Now, the problem itself, given A, B, C, and D, these are four variables, are consecutive positive numbers. So they're numbers that we don't know yet. We just know that there's A, B, C, D, and they're positive consecutive numbers. What is I to the A power plus I to the B power plus I to the C power plus I to the D power? Now, here's the thing. With this kind of problem, especially when it's asking consecutive, we have to really put into definition and understand what it means for numbers to be consecutive. Now, we're used to it when we're actually seeing numbers. So basically, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's consecutive. But it doesn't have to start in 1. It could start in any number. You could start with 6, 7, 8, 9. That's also consecutive. So the point of consecutive is that it's basically increasing by one whole number. And of course, the number that you're starting with is also a whole number, right? So in this case, how can this help us solve this? It seems kind of weird. We have really no number to work with. Well, the idea is that we're working with i's, right? I's have this special property. Remember, they're imaginary numbers. So when we look at I to the first power, that's square root -1. Usually, we just leave it as I. Right? If we're not doing anything special with it, we just leave it as I. Now, I to the second power, we know that it's square root -1 times itself, which gives us -1. Great. Then we have I to the third power, which is the same as I to the second power times I. It's going to give us negative square root -1 or -I. And the last one is I to the fourth power, which gives us basically -1 times -1, which is 1. Now, remember, this is all imaginary number. Now, we're talking about A, B, C, and D are positive consecutive number. Here's the thing. If we keep on going, I to the fifth power is actually just going to be I to the first. I to the sixth power is actually just going to be, well, -1 or I to the second. I to the seventh is I to the third. I to the eighth is just I to the fourth. So on and so forth. It keeps on rotating because as you keep multiplying, you're basically jumping and oscillating between these guys. That's what helps us solve this problem. I to the A, I to the B, I to the C, I to the D. We don't know where it starts. It could start at 1, or it could start at 3, it could start at 5, it could start at 10. It doesn't matter because guess what? Even if we start, for example, at I to the second, if we do consecutive, right? The next one's going to be -I, the next one's going to be 1, the next one's going to be I, and then we keep going. So, in this case, it doesn't matter what A, B, and C, and D are in terms of actual number. We know from the behavior of I that some way, shape, or form, we're going to have basically these four added together. We're going to have I plus -1 plus -I plus 1. All right, it's going to oscillate. We don't know if this starts with the I, but eventually these four are always going to show up. Well, if that's the case, this is what's lovely. I, -I goes away, right? When you add them together, they become 0. -1, 1 goes away. So, if they all go away, if they all cancel each other out, this whole complicated number, even though it seems very scary, and yes, I understand, in a freaking test environment, this is the worst thing to come upon because if you don't remember or see it right away and you're not in like a clear, calm mind, it's almost virtually impossible to just like realize, oh, okay, that's it. So, as long as we're calm and as long as I had time to actually sit down and think about it, this is what I realized. They all cancel out, and guess what? If they all cancel out, the final answer is just 0. So this complicated problem, the final answer is 0. Thank you for watching this video on this particular test question regarding I. See you in the next one.